Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone joining today. Thank you very much. I'm Brad Bush with Strategy for AI, and we help mid-sized service businesses with implementing AI strategy. We've been focused on human-centric AI, and we've had a couple of webinars that have been related to that, starting with the AI Whisperer, and then last week, the AI placebo effect. So if you didn't catch those, go back and watch those. They're available on the site, and I'll give you that information in a little bit. Today's webinar is going to be on the digital gut instinct, how AI makes decisions based on incomplete information, either by itself or helps to executives to make those decisions better. I want to welcome specifically the Dallas-Fort Worth executives because that's where I'm focusing my business, but I appreciate everyone else joining and those that are watching on replay also. What my goal is to give actionable insights that you can use inside of your business to gain real ROI and to help, especially with the human part of AI, like we talked about, when it comes to helping your team get through the cultural impacts of AI. So this entire presentation was created with AI, including the pictures. I think this time everybody has 5 fingers, no 6-fingered or 7-fingered people. But I think that it's interesting to use the tools and show you how you can have something come out. I did change just a few things, cleaned up some things, but for the most part, this was a completely AI-generated PowerPoint. It's actually called Gamma, but a full presentation. So it's documented via a huge McKinsey revolution inside of their company. They started a program called Lily, and that implementation has saved them 500,000 monthly AI inquiries that would have normally gone through their service desks, either their HR or their IT service desks. And it saved them 30% of their work time, not having to wait through those types of service desk calls or looking things up. And it's created an major movement inside that company in their adoption. I'm going to talk about this later, but 78% of companies have some type of adoption in some function, but only 1% think that they're mature. And these are based on different statistics throughout. And what is McKinsey excelling at? It's excelling at what human consultants do best, making strategic decisions with incomplete information. So they've discovered internally how you can implement these strategic decision matrices and make them work correctly for your business. So there have been some technical breakthroughs through 2024 and 2025. AI can now do much better at quantifying uncertainty. And it can interpret AI reasoning much better. I have a chart on this in the backup, so you're going to get these charts as part of the follow-up information. So if you want to see the technical information for this, this Kolmogorov-Arnold networks reasoning is in the backup. But what that means is that the AI can interpret itself and fold over into its analysis to make sure the analysis is right, and then give pragmatic, probabilistic, outcome-based understanding of where it's at when it gives you an answer. So that way, the human AI collaboration can be much stronger. Now, this is meeting a huge executive challenge. As we all know, all executives are time pressured. The average strategic decision timeline has decreased 40% since 2020. And we all know that's just going to continue to shrink as these technologies and the pace of change continues to move forward. 87% of executives report having too much data and not enough insight onto that data. And so I believe that AI is going to be one of the ways that we work to increase the data overload and turn that data into information. And AI decision making shows a 20% return on investment. So why do service businesses specifically have an advantage in this area? Well, 78% of consulting firms that use AI in at least one of their businesses, as we talked about, and out of those businesses, they've seen 63% increase in revenue and 25% increase in task completion. That was one consultancy, Boston Consulting Group, that saw that. So these service-based businesses, and I'm basing it on professional services such as consultants, but all types of service businesses have the same kind of worker composition and same type of tasks. So they should see the same kind of benefits. So why does augmentation beat replacement? And this is a really important part. I believe this human-centric machines and people working together into the future is going to be the way that AI changes our workforce. My human-centric philosophy is that instead of replacing employees, we should get rid of the drudgery and the rote work and make sure that our employees can be used to their true value and communicate better and be more creative and be more strategic. And this says exactly that. So at the top, we have full substitution, limited to efficiency gains, the lowest value. AI replaces a human task, but it doesn't enhance the outcomes. In the middle, we have augmentation, a 30% increase of quantified outcomes per the Procter & Gamble examples. And we can handle routine analysis and do some other things and augment. But the place where you get the highest gains are where we do collaboration with the AI. The AI will do part of the work, then we'll use some judgment, then we may go back in, do pattern recognition. And those types of things where we go back and forth with the AI through those types of patterns is where we're going to get the most gains out of AI. So I'm going to go through 4 different pillars of the digital gut instinct. The first pillar is pattern amplification. So all of these AIs are very good at recognizing patterns and making sure that those patterns are brought to humans, brought to light to the humans. So the first one is they can process at scale. So AI can analyze thousands of variables simultaneously. And although sometimes they make inaccuracies, when they do bring back data that's insightful to a human, it's because they can see an immense amount of varying data. And this gets more and more important as you provide more and more context to the AI. So if you feed your documents in, feed your data in, then the AI can come back and create more and more scale of that processing. A human can only take into consideration 7 to 9 variables at a time. It says 7 plus or minus 2. I like to say everybody can probably do 7, and then most people can maybe do 9. The other thing is that AI is really good, and humans are also good at this, but AI has shown real promise in, especially if you frame the question correct, is identifying analogies across industries. So if you ask, are there any analogies in other industries, or even is there an analogy in the car or automotive industry for what we're trying to do here, or in the pharmaceutical industry, so that maybe you could actually ask it to go out and search for analogies for you. And then finally, and I said it earlier, but AI is getting to be better and better at probabilistic assessment. And I'm going to actually show a cool kind of, not maybe decision model, maybe not probabilistic model, but a quick way to build a decision tree model in an AI without having to write an Excel sheet. And so it will give you confidence intervals for the patterns that it's matching, or you can even just say, okay, give me the top 3 ideas that you have and the probabilities of each one coming up with a specific outcome that you want. So, so these are things that are built from historical analysis, real-time monitoring, analogical reasoning, as we talked about, and uncertainty communication, as we talked about, if you can tell it what uncertainty you're looking for. Pillar number 2 is building a risk radar system. So implementing what we just talked about, but creating patterns that and signals that the AI is looking for, such as financial data, market trends, customer feedback, and then what anomalies you want to see in those deviations from a normal pattern, and what scenarios you want it to look for and plan for, and then dynamic risk scoring of those scenarios against those signals and anomalies. So KPMG built a platform called Clara with Microsoft, and they spent $2 billion, which none of us have, but we could get close to these types of things. And they achieved a 60% reduction in their audit sample size by putting this AI risk scoring in. And there's another place that people are using this, it's in fraud detection. EY increased their accuracy to 95% by identifying suspicious activity across UK implementations via the same kind of fraud implementation. One more, Swiss, that's not on the chart, Swiss banking implemented a reduced customer churn through machine learning behavior analysis using predictive analysis, very similar to this. So you can see there are very many ways that we can implement these types of risk radars into our businesses. The third way, the pillar, is that we can create a decision acceleration engine. And this uses some of the patterns and things that we talked about earlier, but making sure that you think about your decisions in multiple linear processing with AI input. And so what you can do is create multiple scenarios with the AI. You can do impact modeling with the AI, and all of this rapid data synthesis and recommendations will allow you to help rank the right answers and come up as a human using the data that AI helps you get with the answer. Again, collaborating with the AI is what long-term this human gut instinct with AI augmentation will really help. And finally, we want to turn this all into a continuous learning loop as pillar number 4. In the bottom, the executive and the AI will collaborate to come up with a pattern recognition and optimization of the decision. We'll track all the decisions that were aided by AI. We'll do accuracy assessments, which ones turned out right and which ones turned out wrong. And then we'll feed back into the AI via overlay context. You got this one right, you got this one wrong. And over time, we should see the AI starting to get better and better. And this is all based on some research by MIT in their neural conditioning probability framework. And it offers this whole framework. So you can look that up. I'll, of course, be sharing the charts, and you can look up that research paper to see much more about that. So here's some real-world evidence. Armanino is a mid-sized accounting firm, and they went from closing their detailed cash flow models, which was a 13-week cash flow model. It used to take them several weeks to close that, and using AI, they now process and close that transaction in minutes. So they get all that data out and allow themselves to start making much better decisions in a matter of minutes compared to the competitors still that are taking weeks to generate it. So here's your implementation roadmap. In the first 30 days, you should do an 8-week assessment using it should say 4-pillar, not 8-pillar. And then do some cross-functional team formation, which we talked about in the first AI Whisper webinar. So get about 2 to 3 low-risk, high-impact use cases, which I call AI payback projects. So you want to be careful with what you call things. I try not to call things pilots, because what we want to do is put in something that's going to make an impact day one. And with AI, you can do that. So find some payback projects, do some research on which vendors and you want to come up with. And then in the next 30 days, you would implement and deploy some of those tools. Now it can be either a pre-built tool, which has some AI built in, such as a legal analysis tool or legal checking tool, or a contract writing tool, or I know there's some legal people on the call, and so I intended to end with those. My mind jumped to those examples. Or you can make it an actual streamlined workflow for your particular system done with a pure AI payback project with a consultant such as me. But what you want to do is daily monitoring of those recommendations, coming back with pushing things through AI and how does that work? And then finally, in the last 30 days, scale that project out to the rest of the business. Make sure that you're discussing how the ethics and organization wide is going to use that, and develop your marketing message both internally and externally. So you can come up with great ways to implement these decision-making platforms within your business within these 90 days. So 30 to 40% faster within those 90 days would be your goal, to trying to make your decisions faster during that time period. So here's some concerns that CEOs might have with implementing faster decisions using AI. So will AI make strategic decisions for us? So we don't want it to replace us, but we want it to help us. And so just like I said before, the BCG study showed that it helped the performance increase by 23% when you combine AI and human judgment. And what about data and privacy? So there are ways to build the systems where all the data stays within your four walls, even firewalled off completely from the internet. But there are, just like any other tools, there are data privacy on each of these tools. So it's no different than putting your documents into Dropbox or onto Google Drive when you upload, because you're being assured of privacy with those systems as long as you use them within the bounds of the systems. And there are usually boxes that say, I do not want my documents to be used in the model. And that's one thing that you have to make sure of, that you're not sharing your documents into the model. And then how do we know when AI is wrong? Well, it's just like when an intern brings you a document. How do you know when that document is wrong? And most of the time, you should treat AI as a very smart, maybe second-year intern. We should have confidence. You should ask it for confidence intervals, and how do you think its recommendations are? You should review everything that it's looking at. Just yesterday, I was working with a client, and we saw that AI had made up a whole little part of a chart we were doing. So, but because we were looking at it, we noticed it in real time. What's the real ROI on AI? And for most payback projects, they can pay back within the first 6 months, but realistically, you should look for between 1 to 2 years. And how do we maintain a competitive advantage as AI systems become more valuable with proprietary data? You really need to start thinking about how do you build these decision-making capabilities that your competitors can't replicate inside of your business. We talked about this in the last two, but I'm going to repeat it. 70% of your efforts in any type of IT, but especially in AI projects, should be with culture and people. You need to train your executives, you need to train your team, you need to set up success metrics, you need to have cross-functional AI councils, and so that you're setting yourself up for success as you roll these tools out. You need to have a full implementation plan when everybody's going to be trained. You need to have training online so they can go back to it. So all of these things are very, very important as you go forward. And then finally, this is what we had talked about earlier. So there's a 78% adoption. Customers are demanding AI, and we were only at a 1% maturity level. That's businesses self-reporting. So all of this is self-reporting data. So CEOs can either wait and see and risk of becoming followers instead of first movers. They can be gradual adoption, but they may miss their competitive window, or they can be a strategic leader and implement this digital gut instinct as a competitive differentiator. Before I go to that small, short commercial, I want to show you quickly how AI can build a decision matrix. And this is not even probabilistic thinking. So this is really just helping humans make decisions. So you're an interactive web designer using only HTML and JavaScript. Create an interactive web decision matrix template with 5 criteria where I'm evaluating 2 different ways to go forward on a decision. Let me fill in the description of the criteria. Now I'm using Claude, which is a much better coder than ChatGPT. So if you haven't used Claude, this is the small paid version of Claude, which is $20, just like ChatGPT. And you're going to see it's going to create the weighted template. So now it's writing HTML and JavaScript, and it writes it way faster than I can write it. And I'm going to do my little song and dance while it finishes, which it won't take very much longer. And when it's done, it will actually have a full decision system, and you can see it's going to say fill in the script. You can start to see it somewhat filling in. And what this will allow us to do is what you normally would make in an Excel spreadsheet, where you can fill out your choices and fill out your criteria and then get a weighted average of your decisions. And so we'll see that in 1 second. I had it run to make sure it did work, and it did work. In fact, while it finishes, it finished. And so here you name your 2 options. So you'd say, go to school, stay, and job. And then you can do things like fill in your criteria, like better pay. And maybe that's a weight of 8, and you could fill in 8 and 6. And then as you got to the bottom, you'd have the full weighted criteria and which one would win. And you could fill out all of that. So I did that in literally seconds as we were talking. The ways to move forward, you can set up a free executive briefing. We would love to help you talk about how AI is helping your business, and how we could help it go farther with AI. It includes a free 19-question AI readiness assessment. We'd love to do a half-day AI workshop with you to talk about what your biggest low-hanging fruit with AI, your AI impact projects could be, or maybe your first 1 or 2. And then with the Rapid Accelerator, we'd love to do the first 4-week implementation program to get one of those completed. And we'd love to have you on next week's webinar, which is the AI Shaman, how AI predicts human behavior 6 months in advance. So I'll stop the share, and I will turn on the ability for people to unmute themselves. So I appreciate everyone joining today. And if you have questions, you can put your questions in the bottom right, or you can ask them now.
Thanks, Brad. This is wonderful. I do have one question, if you could just address quickly. It came up when you were talking about training, so for on-the-fly training, if we set up an AI that's natural language interface for an executive, for example, and they evaluate, their situation, need to make a decision and ask it for recommendations, and there's a weight and a prioritization on the recommendations. And then they end up learning, the right answer for us was number 2. Is there a way to feed that back in so that the AI gets better and better attuned to that environment, to that role in the organization?
Absolutely, Jeff. And the question gets back to a chart that I was on, which was that chart where it was that continuous feedback loop. So that was exactly it. So in the bottom of that chart was you do your decision, you get your feedback from the decision, which is what you talked about. Then what would be, it's very simple. You would say, we had this decision to make, and here was the data we gave you. Here's the answers you gave us. Here's what really happened, and we were off by this much. And you would maybe make a document that just said that, and then you would make that part of the AI's context. You would feed that back into the AI's context that you were already using, maybe let's say 20 or 30 documents for the AI to make it. Now it would be 31 documents. So you'd add that into the document repository that it was using to make those types of decisions for the next type of decision that it was trying to make.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I do think that these types of iterative work with AI are going to get smarter and smarter. And the key, again, to making these decision engines work for you is creating that context over the long run, and to begin with. So you have all this data in your business that you've already created, and it will be great to be able to take that data and put it in a digestible format and then have AI be able to answer questions from it even as you're trying to make a decision. These are the types of augmentation that AI is really good at.
Yep,
Other questions?
understand.
Okay, well, I really appreciate it today for everyone joining. And this has been so fun getting this one. And I love these human-centric AI discussions. I think that they are really where AI is heading. I think we can lower the fear and raise our team cultures up to be able to use AI and get the most out of it. So I really do appreciate everyone joining, and thank you very much.